It's Hollow Week on the show. Ramiro Galvan is our guest. He is with Paranormal Research Investigations. We're talking top 3 New Mexico hauntings, the top 3 places that Ramiro himself has investigated and that he considers the most active. Number 3 is the old Doña Ana County Jail, the same jail that was investigated by the Ghost Adventures crew earlier this year. Years ago, you were there. And let's start with Mary Waters. Tell me about this Mary Waters and why she still haunts the jail.
Well, Mary Waters was a local waitress there that in 1951, a couple of local constables there found her in the street, passed out. They assumed that she was intoxicated, so they took her to jail, and they put her in one of the cells on the first floor. Anyway, shortly after, I would say probably after they closed the door, and from what the records that I found, shortly after they locked the door and walked away, they heard her scream. They ran in there, and they found her dead. But the thing is that her autopsy report was actually changed several times to change the cause of death. Now, I actually found some documentation where there was a correspondence between one of the jailers at that time and a guy who was writing a book about the area. He wrote that when they ran in there to find her, finding her dead, they found her with a terrified look on her face. And the weird part is that her autopsy reports were changed several times to try and point and say that she died from alcohol poisoning. At one point, the other point they said she died from liver failure, and another one changed that said her liver exploded.
Oh my gosh!
At no point there did it read though that she died of fear.
That's what I think that happened there. Something terrified her so much.
And is there a theory as to what it could be?
Well,
was the jail already haunted before that?
Well, see, the thing is, this is not the first place I've investigated that is law enforcement. And in these places that I've been to, and even if you talk to people who work in correctional facilities, they'll tell you weird things happen all the time.
Yeah.
And one of the beliefs I have, or one of the theories I have, is that you stick a bunch of negative people, a lot of people in there with strong negative emotions, a lot of it stays behind. And pretty soon it kind of coalesces or comes together and creates something much bigger than that. So, in 1951, the jail had already been having issues. People were, they had some riots there because of the living conditions. They had, like I said earlier, the insane room, where you had people that were being put in there without proper treatment and basically were isolated in dark cells. So you get all that buildup that goes on in there, and pretty soon it has nowhere to go.
Right.
And more than likely, people who had already died.
Yeah. Well, look, let me play a clip. You tell me after I play the clip what we're listening to.
Oh, man, you got some corners going over here this way, too. It's like a little maze.
Could you hear that in the background?
Yes.
It's very distant, but it sounds like a woman wailing.
Yes, it does.
What happened here? What was going on here?
We're going down a hallway, and I call it the maze because this place is literally like a rabbit's hole type thing. You go down one hallway and you wind up somewhere else, and that takes you somewhere else and takes you somewhere else. And unless you know your way around, you can actually get lost in this place in broad daylight. So we're going down this one hallway, which I call the maze because it had all these different turns. And we wound up in front of this cell, pitch dark in there. We're using infrared cameras so we can see where we're at. And we didn't hear it. It was me and one other guy walking down that hallway. We didn't hear anything, and you can hear me say it's like a maze in here. Afterwards, when we went to review the audio and video on that, that's when we heard that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a clip, and it's labeled Enhanced and Isolated.
It's like a little maze.
Yeah, no, you can
Did you hear that?
hear.
Could you hear that? How about here? Extracted.
It's like a little maze.
Oh, yeah, no.
You hear that?
Even when it's not isolated and extracted,
Yeah.
you can totally hear that in the back.
It's like a little maze.
Yeah. Oui.
And then here's another one that's labeled Scream. Mary Scream. What's all that about?
Well, we think that's Mary as well. If you play that, I believe that's even more isolated there.
Yeah, here it is.
Oh, man.
That was actually sent to me by somebody who had taken a tour of the place. And they sent it to me, said, well, this is what we recorded in the main floor area, near that same area where I caught the initial scream.
Yeah.
And that was sent to me about 2 years later.
Listen to this. Which is a very similar tone to...
It's like a little maze.
Yes.
To that in the background.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like the same woman.
Doesn't it, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
So I think Mary Waters is still there, or at least she has not yet moved on.
No, she still sounds terrified,
Yes.
quite frankly.
Yes.
Yes.
All
and,
right.
And whatever it was that scared her, I mean, to elicit
Well,
that type of response.
You think maybe it was Bubba?